Okay, we're here with our student Jordan about writing functions. And we're going to be writing them from the dreaded word problems. Are you ready for this?
Yep.
Okay, so let's first talk about some word problem strategies here that we can use so that it'll make it easier for you. I like to draw pictures of what's going on. Okay? Don't worry about wasting paper or anything like that. Just draw a picture so that you can see and label the parts of the picture. You can also underline and label parts of the problem. Okay? That's a great strategy. And then finally, understand what the problem is asking you for, what your goal is. Okay? If you do these three things, you'll be able to kind of really break down a word problem and it won't be nearly as intimidating. Okay? All right, let's look at one. A hiker in Death Valley National Park, which has some areas below sea level. So believe it or not, there's some places in the world that are on land where the land goes below sea level. And it's just that there's no ocean there. Okay, so it's land that goes to negative altitudes. Okay, so this hiker starts at 987 feet in altitude and descends at 220 feet per hour. Write a function in the form f of t equals mt plus b that shows the hiker's altitude as a function of the number of hours, which is t. Okay, so if you're like most people, I lost you somewhere right around here. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do then is we're going to draw a picture and start breaking this problem down. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, the hiker's on a mountain, and is the hiker above or below sea level? Let's ask ourselves that question.
Above.
And how do you know that?
Because he's 987 feet in altitude.
Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw a picture here. So there's some mountain or something, and the hiker's here, and sea level is here. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, good. Now, let's go ahead and figure out exactly what height that hiker starts at. What is that height in the problem?
987.
Okay, so let's underline that in our problem. Okay, that's a good thing to do. And let's go ahead and label what that is, and that's our starting height. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Now, let's go ahead and also put that onto our drawing here. Okay, so that'll really help. So you're starting to get a picture of what's going on here?
Yep.
Okay. Now, let's underline the next thing that's in the problem, which is this 221 feet per hour. Read the problem there. What does that mean? What's the hiker doing? What's that saying about the hiker?
They're descending at a rate of 221 feet per hour.
Good. And so that's a great word that you use. That's the rate. Okay? So, all right, good. So how would you maybe draw that on the diagram? Any ideas?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, are they going up or down?
Down.
Down. So maybe a down arrow?
Yeah.
Okay. And we would label it with the rate. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's do that. Okay, good. So we have a rate, and I'm going to put negative 221 feet per hour. Why do you think we put it as negative?
Because they're going down.
Right. If it were positive, if the hiker were climbing, it would be 221 feet per hour, but this is negative. Okay? Mm-hmm. So now with this picture, you're starting to get a sense of what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So now we understand the situation, but now we have to understand what our goal is. So our goal is to get this thing here. F of t equals mt plus b. And we can label that as our goal. And you might say, okay, I know that it's the goal, but I still don't understand what that means. Well, it's really just kind of like a y equals mx plus b, but it's just written in function notation, okay? And instead of a line, we're talking about a rate problem because we know that there's a rate going on here. So whenever we have something in the form mt or mx plus b, and here we're just using t because it's time. You could use x too if you wanted. The m is always going to be, in a line, it would be the slope, but here it's the rate, okay? So what did we say our rate was again in the problem?
221 feet.
Right, and it's negative, right? So
right,
negative
yeah.
221. Okay, and here, with a line, b is the y-intercept, but with a problem like this, b is the starting value. Okay, so how do we know it's the starting value? Well, if t is 0, that's when everything starts, right? Time is starting at 0. Then that's 0, and all you'd have left is b, right? So that must be the starting value. Okay, so this is kind of like a y equals mx plus b, but it's just describing a different situation. You should think of m as the rate and b as the starting value. Okay, so now, we already know the rate and the starting value, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's go ahead and write this out. I'll start it off. F of t equals, so what should I write for the rate?
Negative 221.
Good, and we'll multiply that by t, just like we're doing here. We're just rewriting this with the numbers here for m and b. And then what should I write?
987.
Good, and should I do a plus 987 or a minus 987? Was the altitude a positive altitude to start with or a negative altitude?
Positive.
Okay, good. So we'll write a plus 987. Okay, so all of this complex stuff right here was just to try to get you to something like really simple here that tells you what the start value is and the rate. Okay, now why is this even useful? You might say, okay, great, I got to my goal, but why did I need that? Well, let's use this function, okay? So let's say, after we circle it there, let's go ahead and say, what will the hiker's altitude be after 5 hours? Okay, so now you could try to kind of think through that, but we have an equation now, and we can just use this equation, and it's actually a function. So the key information here is the 5 hours, right? What is that going to refer to in this function here? What are we going to put 5 in for?
T.
T, right? Because T is the time that's passed, 5 hours have passed. We're going to put 5 in there. So we can just rewrite this function, f of t, that we have over here, and we just put 5 in for t. Okay, and we do it on the left-hand side here, because this tells us, instead of saying the hiker's altitude after 5 hours will be, okay, this says that, f of 5. It's a faster way to say it, right? Mm-hmm. And we put 5 in over here. Probably use a calculator to do these big numbers at this point, when you can calculate that and then add them together, and you have f of 5 equals negative 118. Okay? Now let's translate this back into words so we know what it means. So what does this mean? Let's start to write it out. After 5 hours, the hikers...
Time.
Let's see, what is it? What is this thing that... What is this telling us that the hiker is? Is it the time that they've gone, or
the altitude?
The altitude. Okay, so after 5 hours, the hikers finish this sentence.
Altitude.
Altitude will be what?
Negative 118.
Good. The hiker's altitude will be negative 118 feet. Okay, makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why you go to all the trouble of using functions to make it easier for you to actually use those functions. And really just use these skills here to break apart a word problem and create that simple function for yourself. Good job.